Hello, my name is James, and this is part 4, the teaching of Jesus in the 8-part series, The Son, the Unique One. So far, we have studied the birth of Jesus, the sinlessness of Jesus, and the character of Jesus. Jesus is unique in his teaching. Matthew chapters 5 to 7 are called the Sermon on the Mount. These teachings are the highest moral standards in the world. None other come close to it. There is no way I can adequately share about every point in these 3 chapters. There is so much that amazes me. Chapter 5 begins with what are called the Beatitudes. Matthew 5 verse 3 says, "Blessed." The Greek word is makarios, which describes a state of divine favor, inner joy, and spiritual prosperity that exists regardless of external circumstances. The words that follow are not the standards of a normal, acceptable life. In America, people will just say you are weird or a religious fanatic to believe such a thing, much less to practice it. Jesus said, if you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. John 15, verse 19. Jesus chooses us. Jumping to 5, verse 21 to verse 44, Jesus makes 6 references to murder, adultery, divorce, oaths or promises, evil dealings, and loving your enemies. He says, but I say to you, what has Jesus just declared? That his word is equal to the law of Moses and a revelation of the true inner meaning of the law. He has just claimed to be God on earth. Many years ago, I had lived in Jerusalem in the Old City, in Hebrew, Ir Atikah. I recalled reading about a Jewish scholar who held Yeshua in high respect. However, when he read Matthew 5, verses 21 to 44, he said that is where he stopped and refused to accept the claims of Yeshua as equal to God's law. When I lived in India for 13 years, I read about Mahatma Gandhi. He traveled throughout India preaching a freedom movement from a caboose at the end of a train when they stopped in villages. He was Hindu his entire life. However, of all the great literature in the world, all the great writings about freedom, he used the Sermon on the Mount as his text. Why? He recognized the power, the radical call of Jesus' words. At the end of chapter 7 in Matthew, as Jesus concludes his teaching, it says that the crowds were astonished at his teaching, for he was teaching them as one who had authority and not as their scribes. Matthew 7, verses 28 to 29. Later, Jesus would say that all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Matthew 28, verse 18. That is the key. Who has the authority in my life? In John chapter 7, the chief priests and Pharisees had sent men to bring Jesus to them. They did not bring him. The chief priests and Pharisees say to them, "Why did you not bring him?" The officers answer, "No one ever spoke like this man." John 7, verses 45 and 46. The parables of Jesus are unmatched in teaching about the kingdom of heaven. In Matthew chapter 13, there are 7 parables. From the second parable onward, Jesus begins, "The kingdom of heaven is like." What religious teacher in world history began their teachings with such words? The words of Jesus call our lives to account. I encourage you to read and think deeply about Luke 6, verses 47 to 49. What foundation, verse 48 or 49, is your house, your life built on? Where did Jesus' authority, his words, come from? The religious leaders wanted to know. Luke 20, verses 1 and 2. Jesus said that his words were the words his Father gave him to speak. John 12, verses 49 and 50. Do I honestly want to hear God speak? Then hear the words of Jesus. Shalom Aleichem b'shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Peace to you in the name of Yeshua the Messiah.